Here's the truth they don't teach in medical school. After age 50, your insulin, the hormone that controls whether you burn fat or store it, becomes more dominant than it was in your 30s. You could eat the exact same meal at 55 that you ate at 35, and your body will store twice as much of it as fat. Not because you're lazy, not because you're getting old, but because your cells are literally screaming for a different fuel source. Are you eating clean, tracking your macros, maybe even fasting intermittently, and still waking up frustrated that the scale won't budge? Here's what I want you to understand. Fat burning doesn't happen while you're eating. It happens while you're sleeping. And most people are unknowingly sabotaging their body's most powerful fat-burning window every single night. I'm talking about the metabolic magic that occurs between your last bite of dinner and your first step out of bed tomorrow morning. This is when your liver depletes its glycogen stores, when growth hormone surges to protect your muscle, when cortisol resets to prepare you for the day ahead, and when your mitochondria finally switch from glucose burning to fat oxidizing mode. But here's the problem. Modern life has hijacked this process. Late dinners, blue light, poor sleep hygiene, and hidden evening carbs are keeping insulin elevated when it should be at its lowest point. And when insulin is high, fat burning is physiologically impossible. What the research shows is that your meal timing matters as much as your meal content. A 2024 study from the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya found that the later your final evening meal, the harder your body must work to regulate glucose, and this directly impacts your fasting insulin levels the next morning. Another study in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that eating dinner at 9 p.m. versus 6 p.m. resulted in a twofold higher glucose response and 50% greater insulin secretion for the exact same meal. Tonight, I'm giving you 8 evidence-based strategies, keto hacks that work with your physiology, not against it, to maximize your overnight fat oxidation. These aren't gimmicks. They're metabolic tools that fix root causes: insulin timing, circadian alignment, hormonal optimization, and sleep architecture. If this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post content like this every day to help you optimize your metabolic health naturally. Let's dive into the science. Key points overview. Here are the 8 science-backed insights we'll cover tonight. The 3-hour dinner-to-bed rule. Why meal timing trumps meal content for overnight fat burning. Front-load your carbs. Strategic carbohydrate placement to maximize morning ketosis. Cold thermogenesis before sleep. Activating brown fat to increase overnight energy expenditure. The casein window. Using slow-digesting protein to preserve muscle without spiking insulin. Blue light defense. Protecting melatonin to maintain glucose sensitivity. Magnesium and mineral timing. Supporting GABA and deep sleep for growth hormone release. The cortisol reset protocol. Managing evening stress hormones to prevent morning blood sugar spikes. Morning fat-burning priming. How tonight's choices create tomorrow's metabolic momentum. The 3-hour dinner-to-bed rule. Here's what's really going on inside your body when you eat late. Your circadian biology is fighting you. Your peripheral clocks, especially in your liver, pancreas, and adipose tissue, are programmed to process glucose most efficiently in the morning and early afternoon. By evening, insulin sensitivity naturally declines. Research from the German Institute of Human Nutrition found that for every hour later you start eating, you experience approximately 3% higher insulin resistance the next morning. This isn't about willpower, it's about physiology. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your liver as a gas tank. Throughout the day, you're filling it with glucose from meals. Overnight, while you sleep, your body is supposed to drain that tank and switch to burning fat. But if you eat at 9 p.m. and go to bed at 10:30 p.m., you're topping off the tank right when your body should be emptying it. The result? You wake up still in glucose burning mode, never having accessed your fat stores. The solution is what I call the 3-hour dinner to bed interval. Research on rural Chinese populations found that maintaining a dinner to bedtime interval of more than 3 hours significantly reduced type 2 diabetes risk, particularly in those with prediabetes. Your protocol: finish eating by 6:30 or 7 p.m. if you aim to sleep by 10 p.m. This gives insulin time to fall, allows glucagon to rise, and positions your liver to start depleting glycogen just as you're falling asleep. By 2 a.m., when growth hormone peaks, you'll be in mild ketosis, and your brain will be running on ketone bodies. This one change can shift your morning fasting glucose by 10-15 points without changing a single food choice. Front load your carbs. If you're following a ketogenic approach, you might think you should distribute carbohydrates evenly or avoid them entirely in the evening. But strategic timing matters more than total restriction. Here's the physiological principle. Your body has a limited capacity to store carbohydrates as glycogen, roughly 400-500 grams in the liver and muscles combined. When you consume carbs in the morning, you have the entire day to burn through that glycogen through activity and brain function. When you consume them at night, that glycogen sits in your liver while you sleep, suppressing ketogenesis. A 2019 study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism demonstrated that diet-induced thermogenesis, the calories your body burns digesting food, is 40-50% lower in the evening than in the morning. This means those evening carbs are more likely to be stored than burned. The keto hack: if you're going to include carbohydrates, and many people function better with some strategic carb intake, place them at breakfast or lunch, not dinner. This is called carb front loading, and it aligns with your body's natural insulin sensitivity curve. For dinner, focus on protein, healthy fats, and fiber-rich vegetables. This keeps insulin low while providing satiety signals through GLP-1 and peptide YY. Research on divided dinner patterns shows that consuming vegetables and protein later in the evening while moving carbohydrates earlier significantly improves postprandial glucose and insulin responses. Think of it this way: carbs are energy for activity, not for sleep. Give your body what it needs when it needs it, and watch your morning ketone levels rise. Cold thermogenesis before sleep. Brown adipose tissue, brown fat, is your metabolic secret weapon. Unlike white fat, which stores energy, brown fat burns energy to generate heat, and you can activate it strategically before bed. Research from the National Institutes of Health demonstrated that mild cold exposure, dropping ambient temperature from 24 degrees C to 19 degrees C, increased overnight energy expenditure by 5.3% through brown fat activation. Over the course of a night, that's an additional 30 to 40 calories burned without any conscious effort. More importantly, cold exposure increases norepinephrine, which stimulates lipolysis, the breakdown of fat for fuel. Here's what's really going on. When you expose yourself to cold, your sympathetic nervous system triggers non-shivering thermogenesis. Brown fat mitochondria uncouple oxidative phosphorylation, meaning they burn fuel without producing ATP. Essentially, they waste calories as heat. This process continues for hours after the cold exposure ends. Your protocol: take a 5 to 10 minute cold shower or bath 1 to 2 hours before bed. Not ice cold to the point of shivering, that triggers stress hormones, but cool enough that it's uncomfortable yet manageable, around 60-65 degrees, 15-18 degrees. Alternatively, sleep in a cooler room, 65 to 68 degrees, 18-20 degrees, and use lighter bedding. The metabolic benefit compounds over time. Regular cold exposure increases brown fat volume and activity. One study showed that after just 6 weeks of daily cold exposure, participants had measurably more brown fat and higher resting metabolic rates. If this is resonating with you and you want more of these metabolic deep dives, hit that like button and subscribe. I break down the science so you can apply it immediately. The Casein window. There's a persistent myth that eating before bed automatically causes fat gain. The research tells a different story. It's not whether you eat, but what you eat and how much insulin it requires. Casein protein, the slow digesting protein found in dairy, creates a unique metabolic scenario. Unlike whey, which spikes insulin rapidly, casein forms a gel in your stomach and releases amino acids gradually over 6 to 8 hours. Research from Florida State University found that 30 grams of casein consumed 30 minutes before sleep did not inhibit overnight fat metabolism or lipolysis in obese men compared to a placebo. In other words, casein provided amino acids for muscle repair without blocking fat burning. Here's the mechanism. Casein has minimal impact on insulin when consumed without carbohydrates. It provides a steady stream of leucine and other branched-chain amino acids that stimulate muscle protein synthesis during sleep, exactly when growth hormone is trying to repair tissue. This preserves lean mass while allowing fat oxidation to continue. The protocol: 30-40 grams of casein protein powder mixed with water, or a serving of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese if you tolerate dairy well. Consume this within 30 minutes of sleep. Avoid adding fruit, honey, or other carb sources. Keep it protein only to maintain the insulin-low environment necessary for fat burning. This strategy is particularly valuable if you're strength training. The same research group demonstrated that pre-sleep casein combined with resistance exercise increases muscle mass and strength gains over 12 weeks compared to placebo. You're building metabolic machinery, the muscle that burns calories, while sleeping. Blue light defense. Your eyes are the windows to your metabolic soul. Every photon of blue light that hits your retina after sunset sends a signal to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock in your brain, that it's still daytime. The result? Melatonin suppression, and with it, a cascade of metabolic disruption. Melatonin isn't just a sleep hormone. It's a metabolic regulator that improves insulin sensitivity and protects against oxidative stress. Research published in JAMA Network Open found that exposure to artificial light at night, particularly blue light from screens, was associated with significantly higher risk of weight gain and metabolic disorders. When melatonin is suppressed, your body's ability to process glucose deteriorates, and cravings for high-calorie foods increase. Here's what's really going on. Melatonin receptors are found in your pancreas, liver, and adipose tissue. This hormone literally helps regulate how these tissues handle energy. When you scroll through your phone at 10 p.m., you're not just disrupting sleep, you're impairing insulin function and increasing fat storage potential. The protocol: implement a digital sunset 2 to 3 hours before bed. This means no phones, tablets, computers, or bright overhead lighting. If you must use devices, install blue light filtering software and wear amber-tinted blue light blocking glasses. These glasses have been shown to prevent melatonin suppression even with screen use. Additionally, dim all household lights after sunset. Use lamps with warm bulbs, 2700K or lower, rather than overhead lighting. Your goal is to send a clear signal to your ancient biology that darkness has fallen and it's time to shift into repair and fat-burning mode. The research is clear. Protecting your melatonin isn't just about better sleep. It's about maintaining the metabolic flexibility to burn fat overnight. Magnesium and mineral timing. You can have perfect macros and still fail to burn fat if your nervous system can't transition into parasympathetic mode, the rest and digest state where recovery and fat oxidation occur. This is where minerals, particularly magnesium, become critical. Magnesium is a cofactor for over 300 enzymatic reactions, including those involved in energy metabolism and GABA synthesis. GABA is your primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, the chemical that tells your brain to slow down. Without adequate magnesium, GABA function is impaired, sleep quality suffers, and growth hormone release, which occurs primarily during deep sleep, is blunted. Here's the physiological connection. Growth hormone pulses are strongest during slow-wave sleep, typically in the first half of the night. This hormone is lipolytic. It directly stimulates fat breakdown, But if you're magnesium deficient, you spend less time in deep sleep and miss these crucial hormonal pulses. Research on ketogenic diets and sleep architecture found that nutritional ketosis increases slow-wave sleep duration while reducing REM sleep initially. This deep sleep enhancement is exactly what you want for recovery and fat metabolism, but it requires adequate mineral status to maintain. Your protocol: take 200-400 milliliters of magnesium glycinate or threonate 1 to 2 hours before bed. These forms cross the blood-brain barrier and support GABA function most effectively. Avoid magnesium oxide. It's poorly absorbed and primarily acts as a laxative. Additionally, ensure adequate sodium and potassium intake throughout the day. On a ketogenic diet, you excrete more electrolytes, and low sodium can elevate cortisol, which we'll discuss next. A pinch of high-quality sea salt in your evening water can support adrenal function and prevent the cortisol spikes that wake you at 3 a.m. The cortisol reset protocol. Cortisol is your wake-up hormone, but it has no business being elevated at 10 p.m. Yet for many people, evening cortisol is sabotaging their overnight fat burning and causing morning blood sugar spikes that set up cravings all day. Here's what's really going on. Cortisol's primary role is to raise blood glucose for immediate energy. Think running from a tiger. When cortisol is elevated in the evening, it triggers hepatic gluconeogenesis, your liver making sugar from protein and fat stores. This raises blood glucose, which raises insulin, which blocks fat burning. You go to bed with high insulin and wake up with high fasting glucose, never having accessed your fat stores overnight. Research on sleep disruption and metabolism found that sleep restriction increases cortisol and catecholamines by 62%, elevates fasting free fatty acids, and decreases whole body insulin sensitivity by 25%. This creates a vicious cycle. Poor sleep elevates cortisol, which impairs sleep, which further elevates cortisol. The root causes of evening cortisol elevation are psychological stress, blue light exposure, blood sugar crashes from too many daytime carbs, caffeine consumed after noon, and inadequate mineral intake. Your protocol: first, manage your light environment as we discussed. Second, practice a 5-minute breathing exercise before bed, box breathing or physiological sighs, to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Third, if you wake consistently between 2-4 a.m. with racing thoughts, that's often a blood sugar dip triggering a cortisol surge. Try a small fat-only snack before bed, like a tablespoon of almond butter or MCT oil, to provide stable fuel without insulin stimulation. Finally, consider adaptogenic support. Ashwagandha at 300-600 milliliters before bed has been shown to reduce cortisol levels and improve sleep quality in randomized trials. You're not sedating yourself. You're removing the metabolic interference that's preventing natural fat burning. 10. Core content section. 8. Morning fat burning priming, 250 words. Everything we've discussed tonight isn't just about better sleep. It's about creating metabolic momentum that carries into tomorrow morning. Your body is a predictive system. What you do tonight programs how you'll burn fuel when you wake up. Here's the mechanism. When you successfully deplete liver glycogen overnight through the strategies we've covered, early dinner, low evening carbs, cold exposure, good sleep, you wake up in a state of mild ketosis. Your liver is producing ketone bodies from fat, your brain is using them as fuel, and your insulin is at its lowest point of the day. This is the metabolic sweet spot. Research on breakfast timing and metabolism shows that extending your overnight fast by even a few hours, having your first meal at 10 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. maintains this fat-burning state longer. A study in Nutrients found that earlier eating start times were associated with lower fasting glucose and greater insulin sensitivity, but this doesn't mean you must eat immediately upon waking. The key is protecting your morning ketosis, your morning protocol. Upon waking, don't immediately spike insulin with carbohydrates. Instead, hydrate with electrolyte-rich water, Consider black coffee or green tea for the mild fat oxidation enhancement from caffeine. And break your fast 2 to 4 hours after waking with a protein and fat-rich meal. This extends your fat-burning window from last night into midday. Track your morning ketones if you're data-driven. Even a modest reading of 0.3, 0.5 mmol indicates you've successfully switched fuel sources overnight. If you're consistently below this, revisit tonight's strategies, particularly your dinner timing and carbohydrate distribution. The goal isn't perfection, it's metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between fuel sources based on availability and need. These 8 hacks train that flexibility, making you a more efficient fat burner not just tonight, but every night going forward. Let's bring this full circle. Fat burning isn't something you do at the gym for an hour. It's something your body does for 8 hours every night while you sleep, provided you create the right conditions. We've covered the 8 physiological levers that control this process. Meal timing that respects your circadian insulin sensitivity, carbohydrate placement that front-loads energy when you need it, cold exposure that activates brown fat, strategic protein that preserves muscle without spiking insulin, light management that protects your metabolic hormones, mineral support that enables deep sleep and growth hormone release, cortisol management that prevents glucose sabotage, and morning habits that extend your overnight fat-burning state. The research is clear and converging. Your metabolic health is determined not just by what you eat, but by when you eat, how you sleep, and how well you align with your body's ancient programming. A 2024 twin study found that circadian meal timing shows significant genetic heritability and shares architecture with sleep behavior, meaning these patterns are deeply biological, not just behavioral preferences. Here's my challenge to you. Try just one of these changes tonight. Maybe it's moving dinner up by 1 hour. Maybe it's putting on blue light glasses after sunset. Maybe it's taking a cooler shower before bed. Track how your body responds. Your morning energy, your hunger levels, your mental clarity. Then add another hack next week, and another. Within a month, you'll have built a metabolic infrastructure that works for you 24 hours a day, not just during your waking willpower. Your body wants to burn fat. It evolved to do this efficiently. We've just been interrupting the process with modern habits that ignore physiological reality. When you work with your biology, when you fix the root causes of metabolic dysfunction rather than chasing symptoms, the results follow naturally. If this added value, like the video and subscribe to join thousands of others optimizing their health naturally. I post evidence-based content like this every day because I believe that understanding your physiology is the most empowering thing you can do for your health. Until next time, here's to better sleep, better metabolic flexibility, and waking up tomorrow already in fat-burning mode.